Hi, I'm Zizi Strallen and I play Mary Poppins in Mary Poppins.
I'm practically perfect in every way.
Practically Perfect, if I'm honest, is my hardest song in the show because it's the first one I sing. It kind of sets up the character of Mary Poppins, and it's also quite hard to get the balance right sometimes when you're singing about how practically perfect you are. You kind of want to come across as likable and nice and not conceited, but I think Mary Poppins is good at that. And then at the same time, it's kind of like I always think of it as like a swan. I'm sort of gliding again on the water and my feet underneath are going like crazy because I'm sort of singing the song and at the same time pulling a plant and a hat stand and a mirror and a light and all of these things out of this bag.
Oh, it's a jolly holiday with Mary. Better days I've never known.
Jolly Holiday is the one where I get to have a lot of fun. Jolly Holiday and Step in Time. Jolly Holiday is where, I don't know, Charlie, kind of as Bert, does a lot of the singing in Jolly Holiday. And we have a very, very quick change in Jolly Holiday, so that's always like sort of playing in your mind. But to sing and to do just makes you feel good, whether you're listening to it or singing it. I think it's just one of those songs I think people still sing it to their children, or, it's like that kind of tune is just makes you feel good. I absolutely love, and Jolly Holiday in the show, I mean, it is incredible. It goes from this grey park to a colourful painting in front of your eyes in live theatre. It's one of the most clever things I remember seeing when I saw the show when I was younger, and still is now.
Spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down.
Yeah, Spoonful is just, again, I mean, you can say it over and over again about the songs in Mary Poppins where they're just timeless classics and they make you feel happy and they make you feel good. It's why we desperately need it right now. I think people will put on this album in this time, with the pandemic and everything, and just feel better, even just for the 2 hours that the album lasts.
Feed the birds, tuppence a bag. Tuppence, tuppence, tuppence a bag.
I would possibly say it's my favourite tune from all the tunes of Mary Poppins. I think it was Walt Disney's favourite tune and a lot of other people's. And it's just such a beautiful melody, isn't it? It's like a lullaby. And it's got sort of melancholy tones, and it's just so beautiful. And Petula Clark sings it incredibly well. She's such a legend. Like, sometimes I just think I'm on stage with Petula Clark. It's unreal. It's Feed the Birds is very, very emotional, and it's always sort of made me very emotional. But it's uplifting at the same time. I just think it's just a beautiful, beautiful tune, beautiful melody.
Supercalifragilistic, expialidocious, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious.
After Feed the Birds, you can go into like a little lull and you're like, okay, Supercal's time for it. It can kind of come out of nowhere sometimes, Supercal, but that's why the show is so beautifully structured as well, because the audience have had this like fun, silly number in the kitchen, and then they get this light relief of Feed the Birds, and then you're straight back into this crazy, colourful Mrs. Corrie's shop. Melinda, who plays Mrs. Corrie, is so good, and she just brings the whole thing to life. And then obviously we've got this incredible choreography by Matthew Bourne and Stephen Mear, now Olivier award-winning choreography, obviously you don't get to see that when you're listening to the album. But I think you can kind of feel it. You can kind of feel the energy. I guess that's what they wanted from the live recording aspect. So people weren't just sort of stood still in a studio. You can kind of get the feeling that everyone's doing this crazy choreography while they're singing all the letters. So I think you can really feel that energy if you listen to it.
Playing the game, taking your turn. Some children lose, some children learn.
Yeah, so playing the game has gone through a lot of different lives. before I was involved in Mary Poppins and while I've been involved in Mary Poppins, before it was a song called Temper Temper, which was quite sort of an upbeat number. And Temper Temper sort of got reimagined into playing the game. And then I did a different version of playing the game on the tour, which was quite more of a big sing for me. And so when it got changed to more of a Valentine's number, the toy, I was actually quite relieved, because I don't know if you can tell on the album, but I pretty much sing every song in the show. So it was actually quite a nice moment where I don't get to sing as much. I still sing in it, but not as much. And so Valentine, the toy that Jane sort of treats really badly, comes to life and kind of says, like, Mary Poppins, look what they did to me, like, I'm hurt, and it's kind of that lesson of don't lose your temper, because you'll hurt people, and you can't treat people badly, because they'll sort of tell you about it. You'll suffer the consequences. Every song in Mary Poppins is kind of a lesson, there's a moral or a lesson behind it that Mary is teaching the kids, either in a fun way, or in this case, a slightly more kind of scary way, which is sometimes good. And I know the kids in the audience just love it. They do.
Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim cherry, a sweep is as lucky can be.
So this is like when I say goodbye. I've kind of, at the end of playing the game, I think Mary Poppins kind of goes, right, I've done everything I can for now. The children need to learn the next bit on their own, sort of be left alone to kind of think about what's happened, to digest it. But she kind of always knows that she's going to come back. And the audience must know that as well, because it's only the interval, so they must be like, well, she must come back. But I kind of say goodbye to Bert. And this is sort of Mary and Bert's moment where it's sort of like, oh, if Mary didn't have all these duties and everything that she has to do, then could this potentially be a love story? I think the audience very much get that Bert is in love with Mary, but she kind of has this. I always try and have this thing about me where I'm like, if I didn't have this job that I feel like needs to be done for every child in the world, then maybe I could have a normal life with Bert, but I feel like that's much more important.
Brimstone and Treacle, my favourite liquor, that will make runaways stop.
So this is my little break when Miss Andrew, the nasty nanny, comes in. And she was Mr. Banks's nanny. And she sort of represents, like, everything that's evil in the world. So what happens from... I'm kind of skipping a couple of tracks, but I come back and we reprise Brimstone and Treacle, but she sort of sings it in this way of, like, this Brimstone and Treacle is this disgusting poison that Mary Poppins has a way of, like, teaching children with praise. You do something right, then you get a spoonful of sugar, whereas she has this old school way of teaching, of punishing, which just makes the children want to run away or do more bad things just away from her. So it's sort of like teaching the audience about new ways of teaching children and children's psychology, basically. So that's kind of what Brimstone and Treacle is.
Over the rooftop, step in time. Over the rooftop, step in time.
It's no mean feat for the ensemble, that's for sure, or for Charlie, who wears a sort of harness for the whole thing, so he's tapping, because he tap dances on the ceiling. But it is so fun. It's honestly that moment that you, as a performer, you feel like, this is why I do this. You're halfway through the number and you think, wow, I could not love my job any more than I do right now. It's so, I can feel the audience having the best time. Everyone on stage is having the best time, even though they're tired, or just sort of scraping through it. It's sort of the music and everything about it, and the lighting, and when the chimney sweeps come up from the back.
Anything can happen if you let it. Sometimes things are difficult, but you can bet it.
Anything Can Happen makes me cry. George Stiles and Anthony Drew, I don't know where they pulled this song from, but it is so beautiful and so uplifting. And just, I know I said it before, but it's just everything that we need right now. You know, this year has just been so crazy, and we still don't really know what's going to happen with anything, let alone theatre or our industry, but just with our lives and our families, and everything's sort of on edge all the time. So, you know, but I think this sort of message of anything can happen if you let it, you know, it's this sort of like positivity, put your mind to it. If you put your mind to being positive, then anything can happen. So yeah, it's sort of such a lovely message. It's sort of where I say, like, you know, Mary says like this, the job's done, they don't need me anymore. And it sort of lets you into Mary a little bit of how she's not sort of stone cold. She does have a affiliation, a connection with these kids, and every time she has to leave them, she is sad. It's not like she goes, right, okay, my job's done, I'm out of here. And the audience can see the sort of growth of the connection between Mary and Jane and Michael and the whole family and Bert and everyone, and she has to leave, and so it's quite an emotional. It's the worst thing to try and sing on the last night of a show. When I left the tour, oh my goodness, because it's literally saying my job's done, you know, I'm gonna miss it. The finale is just amazing. I mean, one of the hardest things I have to do in the show is one of the best things I do in the show is my final flight out. You know, sort of it's so amazing, and it's amazing to do, and it's emotional to watch, but then I have to run down all the steps. I sort of have to climb through a hole, and I have to go upstairs, climb through a hole, and then run down the stairs, take my harness off and change my coat and everything, and then run on for my bow like nothing's happened. So when I get to that point, I think, right, I've done it. You know, and it's always sort of like a little relief when I actually make it on in time for my bow. So yeah, so that's kind of what the finale is for me, just a lot of running, really, and a lot of relief of making it. But yeah, and then just seeing the audience, they always stand up. They just love it, and everyone's smiling, and you can see the little kids, and sometimes there's kids dressed as Mary or Bert or a chimney sweep, and they're just loving it, and it's just the best feeling.